And just a quick illustration of how fast things change and move in the NFL. If this Colts-Bears game on Sunday had been on the schedule in 2019, you go into that offseason and you're thinking about the matchup of Andrew Luck versus Mitchell Trubisky. Those are the two starting quarterbacks. Now you come into 2020, and after 3 games of the season, it's Phillip Rivers for the Colts, and that just sounds weird, man. 16 seasons with the Chargers, and now he's with the Indianapolis Colts. It's just odd, awkward, weird. And then Nick Foles is starting for the Chicago Bears. Just fascinating how quickly the dynamics of the National Football League can be. It can truly stand for sometimes not for long. What you understand to be the truth or reality one day can change just like that. When you look going into this matchup, the Colts come in at 2-1, winners of their last 2 over the Vikings and the Jets. I mean, what does that really say? They've certainly benefited from a soft schedule to start the year. The loss in week 1 to Jacksonville probably stings a little bit because that's not a good team either. With that said, the defense has certainly taken advantage of that very soft schedule, giving up only 38 total points in 3 games. They're first in the league in total yards allowed, first against the pass, and fourth against in terms of rushing yards allowed per game. So the defense so far, while they certainly have not faced the best of opponents, has played really, really well. Offensively, Phillip Rivers has been a little bit better the past 2 games, admittedly to me what I would classify as more low pressure, low risk type of situations. Jonathan Taylor now has taken over from Marlon Mack, who's out with the injury. He's the lead dog in the backfield. You've got Mo Alley Cox emerging at the tight end position, along with T.Y. Hilton in the passing game. Gives Rivers a couple of options there, along with Jonathan Taylor out of the backfield. And you look at the Bears. They're 3-0 the hard way. Like, look, I've already said plenty about them via Twitter and via YouTube videos over the past couple weeks for sure, but these close last-minute wins each week, really, really reminds me of the 2001 team. It's not as fun as the 2001 season at this point for sure, but similar type of vibe and feeling that I get right now. Think of Nick Foles as the Jim Miller, if you will. I don't know what that's really supposed to mean, but again, it bees what it bees. But the Bears, again, have certainly benefited from a soft slate of games to start the year. There's no question. The Lions, the Giants, the Falcons, 3 teams certainly staring down the barrel of top 10 picks in next year's NFL draft. The Bears have been fortunate enough to take advantage of that early slate. By hook or by crook, a win is a win, I guess, in the National Football League. As Bill Parcells used to say, you are what your record says you are. And right now, the Chicago Bears are 3-0. The offense is now in Nick Foles' hands. Nagy finally pulled the plug on Trubisky. Think about how bad the feeling was with Trubisky for Nagy, is that in the third quarter of a game for a 2-0 team, he had seen enough and it was Foles' time. It's like he was just looking for an excuse and he had finally found it. So Foles came in and in the fourth quarter threw 3 touchdown passes, brought the Bears back from a 26-10 deficit, and they end up winning, beating the Falcons 30-26 as the Falcons become the Gagkins again. In that game, though, it came with a price. Lost Tariq Cohen for the year to an ACL injury. Thank goodness Ryan Pace had just given him a contract extension to give him more guaranteed money over the next couple of years, right? When you look at this offense, though, the first 3 games, middle of the road statistically, in terms of yards, in terms of points, mediocre. That's the best way to describe it. Now, some people are going to get really giggly tits about what they saw out of Nick Foles on Sunday in that fourth quarter. And it's like, well, that was against the Falcons, a poorly coached team, a depleted team with an already really bad defense. Let's not get too unrealistic in terms of the lofty expectations. Meanwhile, on defense, they're also middle of the road statistically, which is more around where I expected them to be this year. His defense is not elite. It certainly is not a personnel problem. It is a coaching problem. It is a Chuck Pagano problem. And eventually some of you will realize that. It's also a weird thing because you look at a lot of analytics metrics. They're probably going to say that the Bears' defense is better than what the statistics show, but the statistics show what the statistics show. And analytics can be misleading just like any other figure certainly can be. They got eaten up on the ground, though, quite a bit by Todd Gurley and Brian Hill last week in that Falcons running game. Shame on the Falcons for not doing more to actually leverage them in the fourth quarter when they really could have used them because the Bears hadn't really figured out a way to stop those guys on the ground. When you look at this matchup coming up on Sunday, it's a big game for both teams, admittedly. The Bears find a way to win this game. You're talking about 4-0. You're perfect a quarter of the way through the season. And not too many teams go 4-0 and fail to make the playoffs, for whatever that's worth. And if you're the Colts, you're sitting there and saying, hey, if we win this game, we're 3-1. Jacksonville's got Minshew, but we know they're not a really good team. We see them again later in the year. We'll beat them. The Texans are off to an 0-3 start, and while part of that is due to the tough schedules, tough slate of games they had to start the year, the Texans teams, at best maybe a 7-8 win team. The Titans are 3-0, but we talk about the Bears being a fluky 3-0. The Titans are every bit of that, if not then some. And a lucky, fortunate one at that. So if you're the Colts and you come out of this game in week 4 on the road at Soldier Field and you come out 3-1, you feel pretty good about your season. You feel pretty good about your chances there in the AFC South. So it really is a big game for both of these teams. And a matchup a lot of people I'm sure will be looking forward to. When you look at the keys to victory for the Colts, I think it's getting Jonathan Taylor going early. Get him established on the ground because the Bears were vulnerable against Gurley and Brian Hill last week. If you get Taylor going on the ground early, it will open up things for the Colts in the passing game. It will take pressure off of Phillip Rivers. It'll mix up Chuck Pagano 6 ways from Sunday. It's just what's going to happen. And then defensively, bring the house on Nick Foles. Because he's not very mobile. And he will make some bad throws, especially when pressured. Get in his face early, especially up the middle. If you could do that, you could potentially rattle him a little early, get the Bears' offense out of rhythm early, and let them know that last week was just kind of a fluke. And this week is more of what reality is going to be all year. For the Chicago Bears, I think offensively, it's get Darnell Mooney and Anthony Miller more involved in the passing game early. You got Foles now. Take some goddamn shots down the field with both of these guys, and especially Mooney. I try to go over the top of that Colts defense with Mooney's speed. It will also help open up things for Allen Robinson on the outside. It'll help open up things in the running game. I don't want to see them only going to Anthony Miller late in the fourth quarter. I don't want to see them going to Mooney only late in the fourth quarter. I get these guys more involved in the passing game early. Because if you do, you could have some big plays pop and some big plays happen. And then defensively, force Rivers to take some chances down the field. Get a little more aggressive in your man coverage. Bring some heat. Bring some pressure. If I'm saying Nick Foles can't really move, well, Phillip Rivers sure as hell can't move. And I know that Colts offensive line is perceived to be really good, so you probably have to pick and choose your spots. But you got to get after him. You just can't let him stand back there as a statuesque white boy and pick you apart like he does his wife's vagina, because if you do, he probably will. Even if he's not nearly the same level of quarterback as he was 4, 5, 6 years ago. He's a borderline Hall of Fame guy. You give him time and you give him a clean pocket, you give him an open field to look at, he's going to bury you. He's going to light your ass up, again, like it's his wife's vajayjay. So get after him. You got to get after him. I don't know what the deal's been with Robert Quinn. Would be like to be able to get more out of him. Hicks and Mack, I think, have mostly been pretty good so far this year, even if it's not always making big plays every week. But they're around, they're getting pressure, they're being present. Sometimes maybe you just want them to finish a little bit better, but still, get some pressure, get a little more aggressive on the defensive side of the ball. Stop playing so soft. It's a frustration of me to the Bears. They play so soft. Now, coming after the quarterback could leave that middle of the field open, and good God, Danny Trevathan in coverage makes me want to gag. But again, Ryan Pace saw enough of this guy when he couldn't stay healthy the past couple of years, said, Kwiatkowski, Pierre Lewis, nope, Trevathan. We love his leadership. Doesn't matter about his leadership if he's lagging 2 steps behind the tight ends. Just saying. Mo Alley Cox could certainly have a big day in this game because, as I mentioned, the Bears have had a little trouble covering underneath, covering over the middle, and that's where backs and tight ends and slot guys could really tear them up. Mo Alley Cox starting to come in alone a little bit, the former undrafted player, former VCU standout here in Richmond. Could certainly come into play here. I look at this matchup and I say, who do I like better? The Colts trajectory or the Bears trajectory? I like the Colts trajectory a little bit more. Admittedly, One of them's 2-1, the other team's 3-0, and they both played really bad teams to start the season. I think you've seen a little more good play in the wins out of the Colts than you have with the Bears. Like, it's involved multiple fourth quarter fluky type of comebacks, one hold on to your asshole type of last second win over the Giants, Like, this feels like the Bears are playing on borrowed time. I like the Colts better on Sunday. Maybe you could say on the one hand, well, Jeff doesn't pick the Bears to win. That probably means they will win. Could happen. Is Jeff being undercover here and putting his Jeff jinx on the Colts? Maybe. Who knows? Or I could just believe that the Colts are the better team, that the Bears are 3-0 and an overhyped and overrated 3-0 at that. And I don't think Foles is that much better in the grand scheme of things. And I think some of those chickens start to manifest and come home to roost come Sunday. Which one could it be? Who knows? But I like the Colts in Sunday's matchup. I picked them to win 24-20. I expect Rivers to have a nice day. I expect Foles to potentially struggle a little bit. And maybe that's because the Bears struggle to do things on the ground with David Montgomery and Cordell Patterson. But you can certainly let me know heading into this game on Sunday who you like. You like the Colts, you like the Bears, and if so, why? I might even read some of your comments and maybe I'll even respond. Or maybe I won't. I don't know. But make sure either way you smash the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Like this video, click the bell, what the hell, so that way you're notified of future videos. I will certainly be back Sunday afternoon after this Week 4 matchup to give you my recap and all the shenanigans that happened on Sunday.